You are listening to the Maple Footy Podcast, the unofficial football podcast of the North. I'm your host, Sam Little. Find me on socials at SamLittle44 and the podcast at Maple Footy Pod. And now there's nothing left to say except for sit back, enjoy, and welcome to the show.
Hello, yes, and welcome back to the Maple Footy Podcast. You already know. We play in the intro that you just listened to. We're the unofficial football podcast of the North. And before we get into anything today, I just want a few housekeeping things. On Friday, we released our interview with Leah Palazzo Tellier, first ever futsal player on the podcast, and that is really cool. She's the Canadian Futsal Player of the Year. She's had a ton of success with the team. I think it was a great conversation about, all the trials and tribulations that come with success and what have you. Really great interview, in my humble opinion. So if you haven't checked it out, go check it out. If you already have checked it out, why not check it out again? At the end of this episode, I will also be teasing you with our next interview dropping on Friday. This one is huge. This one is massive. This one, I cannot overstate it, is an unreal one. And I set these expectations because I know that they are going to hit. So stick around until the end of the video. You will see a sneak peek at it. Very, very, very excited for that one. Outside of that, some friends of the podcast did some really cool things recently. So Forge FC, of course, I'm a Hamilton boy, but Forge FC, one of our former guests on the podcast, the legend Tom Walker, GOAT himself. So as we talked about in our interview with Tom, Forge FC, we're doing a member exclusive kit this season for season ticket holders. And my goodness, we've seen them now. They were up on Forge's Instagram. I'll put a picture of it somewhere on the screen. Gorgeous kit. Tom, the entire team, everybody that worked on it absolutely knocked it out of the park. These look stunning. Absolutely love them. They look unreal. Genuinely, everybody involved, Tom and everybody else, outdid themselves on this one. Potentially, still need to fact check it, potentially the first time this has been done in soccer in North America where season ticket holders are getting a members exclusive kit. So that is really, really cool and absolutely gorgeous kit. And one final one, just want to give a quick thank you to a man named Kit who helped set up our interview with Leia. I'm going to link his socials down below and YouTube. This is not a paid ad. This is just me shouting out someone. He helped set up our interview, so just want to give him a thank you. Going to shout him out down below in the description. Link to his Instagram where he runs soccer camps over in Montreal. Definitely give it a look. And yeah, really, really cool stuff that he's doing as well. So just want to say thank you to all those people, and thank you for listening to the interviews. Thank you for listening to the podcast so far, getting all my thank yous out the way. So thank you so much, and we will get into this podcast proper now. So over the last week, a lot of our boys abroad did some real good stuff. So we'll get into that stuff. I know I usually start with injury updates, injury concerns, all that fun stuff, but knock on wood, it was a pretty good week for any injuries, any transfers. No big transfer news to discuss, no big news. So we're just going to hop into some of our boys abroad, then going to come back to the MLS. Then our final little segment will be my breakdown of Canada men's national team squad for the March friendlies, the last friendly window before the World Cup. So pretty big one here. But regardless, let's start with our boys abroad. As you know, I'm the conductor of the Kyle Larin train. Everybody saying the last couple of years, is it time to move on from Kyle? Kyle, from me to you, because I know you're watching this. I ain't moving on from you, Kyle. I can't. I'm the conductor of the train, and my goodness, did I invest my stocks at a good time, because this past week he had a huge week coming into the international break, which is what really excites me here. He grabbed an assist against Norwich in a 1-0 win, and then the very next game grabbed a goal versus Oxford. And Southampton now join Hull City, shout out Liam Miller, in playoff positions, but it is very close there. Not saying that everything is, they're going to be in the playoffs, but it's very much something for Southampton fans, I think, to look forward to get excited about. Southampton, kind of like Norwich, made a lot of really good signings in January, and one of them, of course, being a Canadian. If you want your championship team to do well, sign a Canadian. We gotcha. But Kyle Larin has really found his form here with Southampton at a very, very critical time heading into this March window. And I think as a Canadian fan, with our striker woes going on at the moment, I do think that this is a positive for sure, in my opinion. So Kyle Larin, let's hope he can replicate that in March friendlies. Elsewhere in the championship, Ali Ahmed grabbed himself an assist against Charlton in a win. Ali Ahmed's Norwich looking very good. Another Canadian boy doing very good in the championship. Don't have a whole ton new to say about Ali Ahmed other than keep it up, man. He's looking absolutely phenomenal, and another one to definitely watch in these March windows. I think it'll be interesting to see how he does with the national. Not that he's ever done poorly. That's not what I mean. But I want to see if he can replicate this fire form that he's in with Norwich, with the men's national team in these March friendlies. Because I think if he does, we could be seeing him lock in his plays in the starting 11 for the World Cup if it's not already locked. Elsewhere in the championship, Liam Miller's Hull, the Hive. You already know, the Hive is buzzing. I have it written over there. Keep the Hive buzzing on a whiteboard there. I just put it in today, actually. But Liam Miller, his Hull beat Sheffield Wednesday 3-1 this past week. They stay in those playoff spots, but as I said, just barely any points separating from like 3rd to 7th or something. It's absolutely tight in there. But Liam Miller, I got faith in him. I would love to see actually Hull versus Southampton at Wembley in the playoff final because two Canadians on that stage I think would just be so cool. But regardless, I don't think my heart could handle that, but I would still watch it. And then elsewhere, going down the leagues, Peppel grabbed his 15th goal of the season in all competitions for Plymouth. Also grabbed himself his first Canadian call-up, and we'll get into that a little bit more as I talk about the March squad that has been announced. But yeah, good week for Peppel. Another good week, Junior Hoylett grabbed his first Swindon Town goal. Unk doing it again. I just love Hoylett, man, and I will always root for his success. So really happy with his goal. It was actually a very nice play by him and Swindon. A little give and go, really, between Hoylett and another player, then essentially leading into a tap-in. Not bad at all from our boy, Junior Hoylett. So elsewhere in Europe, before we head into the MLS, Tajon Buchanan and Tani Oluwaseyi grabbed a couple minutes for Villarreal in a 3-1 win over Real Sociedad. And I bring this up because they sit 3rd in La Liga ahead of the international break. Huge for Villarreal. Really glad to see Tani and Tage getting some minutes. Tage has been starting a lot of games recently, so no surprise they kind of dropped to the bench in this one. Tajon Buchanan, Tani Oluwaseyi, there's a rumor that a striker could be leaving Villarreal, which could mean that Tani may find himself starting a little bit more if Tani stays coming into next season. But yeah, so that could be something to watch for Villarreal and for Tani Oluwaseyi. So really looking forward to what they could do in this March window as well. In Italy, we had the Cone David derby, and I think one of these players will be playing for Juventus next season, and I don't think it's the one currently employed by Juventus. I'm kidding. I do also think Jonathan David will be playing at Juventus next season, but I wanted to make my point a little bit funny. Let me know if you laughed. But Ishmael Kone is the one that I'm talking about potentially playing for Juventus next season because apparently the rumors are really heating up now. And apparently Juve and Sassuolo have a pretty good working relationship. So maybe we see that happen before the World Cup, before Kone's price tag goes up. Because if you know, Kone is going to have an outstanding World Cup. I've seen into the future. And he's I think if he does have a very good World Cup, I do think it will be more than just Juventus looking at him. I think there will be a lot of clubs looking at Ishmael Kone. So I wouldn't be surprised to see this one maybe get done before the World Cup so that Juve can kind of get him for a little bit cheaper than maybe the post-World Cup tax. But regardless, this game ended 1-1 between David and Kone. Kone bossed the midfield yet again, running out of words to describe the man. He's looked absolutely sensational this season. Jonathan David, however, it's a tale of two sides here. Jonathan David was an unused sub in this game. So I'm not going to hit the calls for concern alarm just yet. But regardless, I do think that there could be some concern with Jonathan David when we have to reevaluate at the end of this season heading into the World Cup. But time will tell. And elsewhere, another one of our Canadian boys that's struggling for minutes, may not get any at all. Derek Cornelius, it's come out now that the Celtic Rangers manager may not reintegrate him back into the squad. He's apparently been training with the Rangers B team, and the manager is pretty content with the group of players that he has. So I understand it from Rangers' point of view, trying to see this from both sides, because he is a lone player. He's not technically Rangers' player. Are they really going to put in time and devotion into having, rehabbing a center back that might not even be with them next season? But from a Canadian standpoint, I'm sitting there going, well, play him. We need you to play him. So can you play him? But I do understand both sides of it. It is a shame for Cornelius because I actually do think pre-injury with Rangers in those 10-ish games he played with the club, he did look really good and was really enjoying his life in Scotland. So it does kind of suck that he got injured, and now it looks like that's most likely the end of his Rangers career. What this means for him heading into the World Cup is another question that I think we'll get into when we talk a little bit about our squad for the March windows. But outside of that, we're going to move on from Europe, and we're going to move into the MLS. So kicking things off with some MLS teams that were playing in the CONCACAF Champions Cup over this past week. LAFC, our honorary Canadian team. If you don't know, I call them our honorary Canadian team because we have 5 Canadians playing for them at the moment. But LAFC are through in the Champions Cup to the next round. They won 2-1 in the second leg. Sorry, just speed running these before so I can get into the MLS action. Miami, this was huge, and I'm mentioning this because Dane St. Clair plays for Miami. Miami are out of the Champions Cup. Nashville, who's been kind of a sleeper pick in the MLS this season, have had a really good start to the season. Nashville ousted them. I don't think many people saw that coming. But hey, here we are. And then the Vancouver Whitecaps will not be getting their redemption from last season where they lost in the final. They are out. Seattle Sounders really dealt with them pretty easily, and I think it was a very disappointing week for the Whitecaps because we will get into their MLS result. But moving into these MLS action here, following an incident with Portland Timbers, James Pantemis needed 14 stitches and the left side of his nose glued before their game this weekend. So that is intense. He absolutely had the aura in the face mask that they have to wear, and they drew 1-1 with the Galaxy. Kamal Miller was sent off. And now I'm biased. He's my center back. He's my number 4. Love Kamal Miller. That was never, ever, 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 ever a red card, in my opinion. I watched it many times because I wanted to make sure before I went on here to be like, that's not a red card. This was not a red card. It was a yellow, for sure. Don't get me wrong. It was a missed time challenge. Absolutely. But this is a missed time challenge that happens pretty much in any game that is usually just a standard booking and sometimes not even. So I truly don't know where the red card came from. I think it sucks for Kamal because after spending the first couple games not really involved with Portland Timbers, the last few now, he's been playing with them starting and whatnot. So now it feels like he's getting relegated back to square one of now he's going to have to sit out for a few games for Portland. I think that sucks. And especially because in the manner of which he was sent off, he should not have been sent off. I understand, once again, I am biased. That's my center back. That is my number 4. But I truly have watched it a few times. Just do not think it was a sending off. But regardless, Portland did gut out a 1-1 draw with the Galaxy. So it could have been worse, but yeah, you never want to see that, especially for Kamal Miller. Elsewhere with St. Louis, Kyle Hebert not featured for St. Louis or St. Louis 2 over the weekend. Still trying to find out if there's anything maybe going on injury-wise or anything else. I cannot find anything for Kyle Hebert, so I'm just hoping everything is okay because he has not featured for St. Louis in the MLS this season, really. And then with St. Louis 2, he has been featuring. Lucas McNaughton, though, his teammate on St. Louis, pulled double duty over the weekend. He played in St. Louis's 3-1 win over the Revs, and then also played with the St. Louis 2 team, so getting minutes under his legs, which is a good thing. Elsewhere, Joel Waterman started and went the full 90 for Chicago in a 2-1 win versus Philadelphia. So Joel Waterman having a pretty good start to life in the second city with Chicago. So yeah, I think he's really been improving over the last couple months, and I think that is only a positive for us with Canada and for himself. So hats off to Joel Waterman. Elsewhere, though, someone who's not having a great start to life, Maxime Crepeau held 5 to Nashville. My note here is, Max, because, yeah, it's not looking good. I'll get into the goalkeeper debate a little bit more as we get into the March window breakdown camp that I'm going to do. But, yeah, not looking ideal for Maxime Crepeau. Miami, Dane St. Clair conceded a few more. He made a couple good stops. 3-2 was the final of that one. So, yeah, we're going to get into some of the Canadian teams now and then move into our breakdown. Yeah, sorry, I feel like I'm rushing through this, but I do want to get to that breakdown of the squad. So those are the Spark Notes summary of the MLS action. We're going to get into our Canadian teams right now. So we'll start off with the Whitecaps. They lost 1-0 to San Jose, and I'm not going to sit here and say the Whitecaps were phenomenal because I don't think they were. I think it was another pretty lethargic performance from the Whitecaps. That's a couple now in a row, so maybe something to be concerned about. But I also do think the officiating in this game was absolutely woeful. And not trying to be that guy that blames the ref for the loss, because I do think that the Caps had opportunities to capitalize and they just didn't. But the reffing here was just, It was definitely a reffing performance, that's for sure. But yeah, the Whitecaps, I don't think that this is cause for concern or anything. They still sit second in the Western Conference, so far from a crisis mode, I think. Just, 2 back-to-back losses in CONCACAF, and then a loss here in the MLS. Not ideal, so 3 losses in their last 4 in all comps. Not great. But you still do see some of the things that they're doing well. I still think they miss a player like an Ali Ahmed, which you're gonna anyways. I just find that Thomas Muller isn't getting the best out of him. Brian White isn't getting the best. I think that maybe once Ryan Gauld comes back into the fray, which is apparently should be soon, I think we could really see that Ali Ahmed-esque creativity in there. But time will tell on that front. But yeah, just not a great week for the Whitecaps. Elsewhere, Montreal lost an absolute heartbreaker, 4-3, basically last kick of the game for Cincinnati. They grab the winner. It is tough. I do think, though, Montreal these last couple of games have looked better, which is good. Because at the start of the season, I really don't think they looked great at all. And this, once again, isn't me going, Montreal, they've turned their season around, MLS Cup champs. Not what I'm saying, but I do think there have been minor improvements throughout. This one, though, they just really fell asleep on the last couple goals for Cincinnati, so Montreal proving to be their own worst enemy at times. And this probably should have been a game that they probably should have done, at least seen out a draw, per se, because they were up a man. Cincinnati had a guy sent off, but that seems to be Montreal's problem right now. They are their own worst enemy. They do some good things, like, scoring 3 goals in this game, move the ball around, I think, quite well, but then also falling asleep defensively, letting the other team find joy in their 18-yard area, final third, and then they get punished. So I think if they can really shore it up, I do think that you could see them have a decently solid season, nothing insane, but I do think that they could turn this around in some sense, because we have seen some positives throughout this season for them. But our final Canadian team, TFC, won 2-1 over the Crew, came back from 1-0. And I think that's what's different about TFC this season. Whereas last season, when they went down 1-0, it was like, well, that's game over. Thanks for coming, everyone. But this season, it actually feels like TFC has some heart. They have some fight. They have some grit between their teeth, and I really enjoy that. It's just nice to see TFC actually battling it out, because the last couple seasons, they really have not been. So it's actually nice to see them putting in this effort, putting in these performances. A word on Daniel Shalai, because what a signing he has proved to be. Grabbed another assist over the weekend. He is looking very, very good for this TFC side. If you're, of course, a follower of the MLS, you know that this guy is good. But, TFC the last couple years hasn't had a great transfer record, but he's looking very, very good. Mihailovic also looked quite good. Josh Sargent, I think, could have had a couple of goals maybe. At least one for sure. Keeper made some unreal stops on him, so maybe it was just one of those days where Josh Sargent ran into a keeper that was equal to him. But I do think Josh Sargent's time will be coming very, very shortly. Not gonna sound the alarms on this one of, oh my gosh, he's a flop. Nah. Let's take it easy. I do think that Josh Sargent will come good. But elsewhere, I think TFC's defense, I think they look really, really good. Zimmerman grabbed his first goal and looks immense again. Raheem Edwards, I think, has been a revelation for TFC as the left back. I think he's looked quality since returning it to his boyhood club. Then, of course, Richie Larea. We already know what we're getting with Richie. One of the top fullbacks in the league. Really enjoy watching Richie. And then Gavrin, I think the last couple of games, he's looked a lot more comfortable with that number 1 shirt on his back. The first 2 or 3 games of the season, he was looking shaky. But these last 2 games especially, I think he's really looked very good and has made some very big saves. So I do think that maybe we're seeing the awakening of Gavrin. And of course, wanted to give a word to my bear, Jonathan Osorio, as he played his 400th game for the club, which has never been done for TFC. And he is, of course... He's my favorite Canadian player ever, so excuse me while I be very biased over him for a minute, because so happy for him. 400 games, 3-time Eastern Conference Championship winner, 6-time Trillion Cup winner, 4-time Can Champ winner, Supporter Shield winner, of course MLS Cup champion, CONCACAF Champions League Golden Boot and Best 11, a George Gross Memorial Trophy winner, and a 2-time Red Patch Boys winner. Not bad for a boy from Toronto. Then, of course, during his time with TFC, has also been to the World Cup with Canada and the Copa America. He's got 69 goals and 40 assists, and, of course, is the captain of the club. So, super happy for Jonathan Osorio. I love him. He's my favorite Canadian player of all time. And yeah, I'm happy that TFC acknowledged him too with the specialized armband that they did for him. It said like 400 so on it. Really, really good little touch from TFC there. But yeah, this is pretty unheard of. I don't think we'll see another Canadian player do this for quite some time, if ever, both with the CV and the amount of games that they've played for one club. It's truly something that doesn't happen often for Canadian players in Canada soccer. So I think when moments like this happen, we do need to acknowledge them because they are special. These don't happen every day. And it's just really cool to see a boy from Toronto, come through Toronto and then come up through the ranks during TFC from being, a squad player in a sense to now being one of the guys and, of course, the captain. I think it's just such a great story and something that I think TFC should really promote in the sense of, hey, like, look at what we can do, So really, really happy for Jonathan Osorio. As I said, of course, one of my favorite Canadian player of all time. And, yeah, just really happy for him and happy that TFC acknowledged him over the weekend. So getting into our March friendly window squad, probably the best way to say that. We're going to start with the goalkeepers, move up from there, and chat about them. So goalkeepers, no surprise here, Maxime Crepeau and Dane St. Clair, the two guys. I assume that they will both probably be getting 1 game each. Why would we change the formula now? And then who's going to be our third choice goalkeeper? Owen Goodman. I'm okay with that. I think Owen Goodman is quite the good goalkeeper. I think he has a lot of talent, and I think being exposed to these windows, I should say, I think can only help him be in and around this camp and get to know the guys and get to know the program, all that fun stuff. But as far as Maxime Crepeau and Dane St. Clair, as it stands right now, I do think Dane St. Clair is probably our number one. Not that I think either one of them have started out the season phenomenally, because I think both of them have not had superb starts to the season. I think St. Clair edges it just a little bit. I think he's done a bit more than Crepeau this season so far. But with that being said, I, once again, still don't think either one of them are showing the best of themselves. But this could be the window. I do think that you maybe see the number one spot stamped down because the March window is very close to the World Cup. But if St. Clair does do very, very well in his game that he plays, once again, assuming they both get one. If Dane St. Clair does very well in his game, then add in the fact that he's been in a bit better form at club level, I think then you probably edge it to St. Clair to be our starter. But of course, that's not me saying that Crepeau's chances are dead in the water or anything, because I do still think that there's a quality goalkeeper in Maxime Crepeau. We've seen it in spurts this season, and then of course we've seen it throughout his Canadian men's national team career. But yeah, just right now, neither one of them have, in my opinion, done enough to be like, you need to be our guy. If it was to be chosen, though, at this moment, I think St. Clair etches it just by like a hair, I think. Moving in to the defenders, we have two training guys in Alistair Johnston and Moise Bombito. So they're a part of the training squad, going to be in around the squad, which I think is good ahead of the window. You want two of your big players there. Elsewhere, Richie Larea, no shock. He's here. Kamal Miller, really happy that he's involved. Of course, some center back concerns at the moment, of course, as we just mentioned. Moise Bombito, he's only a training player because he hasn't played recently. Alfie Jones is still out. And what concerns me with an Alfie Jones at the moment is he's only got one cap with Canada under his belt. And now, say he is healthy, are we going to throw him into the biggest tournament of his and Canada's lives? That is a concern for me. And not to say Alfie Jones, he's not quality. My only thing is he doesn't really know the team, doesn't really know the players. How well would that experiment maybe work when you're being, a spotlight shined on you on the biggest stage? So that's a center back concern I do have. Ralph Priso, I'm very happy about this. I've been saying for months Ralph Priso deserves a Canadian men's national team call-up. He has been called up. My concern here kind of echoes what it does with Alfie Jones, though, is, if he, say, does come to the World Cup, it's the same thing. Has he played with his team enough, And I understand, Sam, they're pros. I get that, but there is also a thing called team chemistry, where we do have to be concerned with the amount of guys missing and maybe some new faces coming into the fold. Not that I don't think they can step up, that's not what I mean, but I do think that there are concerns when you bring new guys into the fold. But very happy about Ralph Priso being brought into the fold. Another guy brought into the fold, Marshall Ruddy. He is having quite the good start to life at the Red Bulls. I will say, to immediately contradict myself about not bringing new players. Well, I never said not bring new players, but to immediately contradict myself, Raheem Edwards, I think, has got to feel hard done by here, because I think he has had a very good start to life with TFC. But regardless, Jesse Marsh chooses Marshall Ruddy, a bit younger, a lot younger than Raheem, and has also had equally a good start to the season with the Red Bulls. So no huge complaints here. Joel Waterman is another one that has been brought up. Once again, no shock. I think he's had a very good start to the season. Luke DeFougerel has been brought in. My only thing with this is he, obviously Jesse Marsh would know better than I. Is he healthy enough to play is the question. I would assume he is if he's getting called up. But he has been out for the last couple of weeks with an injury. Is he ready to play? I don't blame Jesse Marsh for bringing him, because I do assume Luke DeFougerel will most likely make the squad for the World Cup pending he is healthy. So I don't blame Jesse Marsh for wanting to bring him up for the last window before that. But yeah, just, another guy that could be a little bit rusty for these games. But I do understand the thought process of, well, if we're going to be bringing you for the World Cup, we might as well bring you now in March and see what you can do. Another guy coming back from injury that's going to be back into the Canadian men's national team, Derek Cornelius. As we kind of mentioned earlier, Rangers might be done with him. We don't really know. But another concern of, is he rusty? Is he good to go? Who knows? And I think those are the concerns that are really hampering Canada at the moment, because, while we are getting guys back, it's not just you come back and you're good. You have to come back, you have to be eased in, both at club and country level. And a lot of our players have had lengthy spells on the sideline. So that is a concern for me. But regardless, I do think that of the defenders available, these are some very good ones to bring. So yeah, some misses would be goalkeeping wise. I would say these would probably be the three that I would have brought. But if you want to say like a Pantemis, I think he could have also been a third choice for this window. Then defenders, I think you're looking at Raheem Edwards, Jamie Knight-LaBelle, I think is another miss. And then, of course, Alphonso Davies, but we knew he wasn't coming anyways, but kind of have to mention a guy like Alphonso Davies. But yeah, those are just some names, but really no big shockers here. Like, I'm even saying Raheem Edwards, but there was never an expectation that he would be there. Just looking at his start to life with TFC, you're kind of going, he's had a good start. I could maybe see a reward with the national team call-up, but there was never that expectation, for me at least, that he would be getting said call-up. Just wanted to mention some guys that maybe kind of missed out here, but we'll move into our midfielders now. So a huge notable miss, of course, Stefan Estacio. He is dealing with an injury, having run into a referee because of course, he's had a very good start to life with LAFC. Sadly, we won't be seeing it in this March window with the national team. He is someone that I think he is healthy. He'll be at the World Cup anyways, most likely starting for us. He's too crucial for us to not be there if he's an option, so it is definitely a miss going into this window. But then midfielders that are coming, Mathieu Choinière, no shock here. He's had a very good spell with the national team under Jesse Marsch. He's now playing a bit more at club level with Stefan Estacio being out at LAFC. And yeah, I don't have a whole ton of nuance or intrigue to bring to Choinière because, yeah, of course he was called. He's had a very good start to the season. Jonathan Osorio also called up. I'm happy about this. Obviously, that's my bear. As I just kind of discussed, I think Oso has had a very good start to the season with TFC. For me, he brings a lot of experience, a lot of locker room leadership, which we are missing at the moment with a lot of our big guys out. Like an Estacio brings a ton of leadership. Alphonso Davies is the literal captain of the team. So bringing a guy like Oso with that veteran experience, being a club captain, and is, I would assume, seen as one of the leaders in this Canada men's national team squad, I think it's very good to bring him, as well as he's earned it. He's had a very good start to the season with TFC, and I won't hear otherwise, to be honest with you. Ishmael Kone, yeah, I mean, of course, he's been called. He's had an outstanding season with Sassuolo as that potential Juve transfer looms. So nothing of interest to add for Kone outside of, well, yeah, of course he's here and he's probably going to start both games that we play. And I'm very excited to see what he's going to do in the Red of Canada. Best Saliba in world football, Nathan Saliba, also called up. I think this could be a very big window for Saliba with Stefan Estacio not being there. I do think that it could call for a Nathan Saliba to get maybe a bit more minutes than maybe we could have anticipated had a Stefan Estacio have been there. And I think that's very exciting because Nathan Saliba, Best Saliba in world football, has had a very good start to the season. And I'm very much looking forward to what he can do in this squad because we saw at the Gold Cup how good he was. We've seen in some friendlies under Jesse Marsch how good he has been. So really looking forward to maybe if he gets given the ball, I want to see if he can run with the ball. Not actually like metaphorically speaking, but I guess also actually speaking too. Other guys called up that are kind of wingers, but we'll kind of put them in with the midfielders. Junior Hoylett. I was very surprised to see Junior Hoylett on this list. I thought he might have been done with the national team, not for any reason outside the fact he is starting to age. We have other guys coming into that position, but I'm still more than happy to see Junior Hoylett, another one of those guys that brings a veteran experience, brings that leadership, brings a great locker room presence. So I'll never, ever, ever complain about Junior Hoylett getting called up. I love Junior Hoylett, so never going to complain about that. Marcelo Flores was called up. Nico Seeger, really happy that Nico Seeger was called up. Once again, no shot. I put him as a midfielder. I'm sorry. He'll probably be deployed as a defender. I put him in my midfield category. Sorry. But yeah, excited to see what he can also do in this window. I would honestly, especially with Estacio out, I wouldn't mind Jesse Marsch putting Seeger in the midfield. But I assume Seeger will probably be playing more so defense, like a right back in the World Cup. So maybe Jesse Marsch doesn't want to experiment with Seeger in the midfield before the World Cup. Maybe he wants to play him as the right back in these March windows, which is understandable. Just me, in an ideal world, I guess, I would like to see Seeger maybe deployed as a midfielder with Stefan Estacio being out at the moment. Ali Ahmed, Liam Miller, and Tajon Buchanan, just going to lump all three of them in together because, once again, absolutely no surprises here. All three of them deserve the call-up. All three of them, if healthy, should be going to the World Cup. They've all had stellar seasons in their own rights with their clubs. Ali Ahmed has just started like something on fire. There's definitely a saying that's escaping my mind, but he has started on fire this season. Liam Miller, I think, has really bounced back very, very well from his injury-riddled kind of last year, and Tajon Buchanan is showing us the Tajon Buchanan that we know that he could be with Villarreal, so really happy for that. Some absences here. Obviously, the obvious, Stefan Eustaquio. Then I think a Jaden Nelson and a Jacob Schaffelberg. Jacob Schaffelberg, of course, not a surprise that he was left out, given he has not played yet this calendar year with LAFC. But definitely, if you're one of these guys, and this goes for all these guys, not just Schaffelberg and Nelson, but any guy that's kind of missed out on this window, I do think that you might be sweating a little bit of like, oh no, like, am I missing out on the World Cup here? You know, how much more do I have to impress at club level? Like a Jaden Nelson, I think he's going to have a huge, what were we, about 2.5 months from the World Cup? He's going to have a huge 2.5 months here to, I think, change Jesse Marsch's mind to bring him. Jacob Schaffelberg, I think if he can come back healthy and play, I do think that there is still a spot on that plane for him because we've seen how crucial he has been under Jesse Marsch at times, and I like to call him Big Game Shaft because Big Game Shaft shows up in a big game. He is someone that I would bring to the World Cup pending he is healthy because he has changed games before at club and country level, and they're usually the big games where he shines the brightest. So me personally, I'm bringing that to the World Cup if he is healthy at that time, of course. But yeah, those are some misses. Those are some midfielders that I'm excited to see. And yeah, I think it could be very exciting for some of these midfielders, especially like your Nathan Salibas, Mathieu Chouaniers, and even Jonathan Osorio to impress with Stefan Eustaquio currently being out at the moment. Now, in with the strikers. Honestly, this was probably the category where I was most surprised. The 3 non-surprises here, Jonathan David, Kyle Larin, and Tani Oluwaseyi. All of them I pretty well expected to be here. Happy that Kyle Larin is here because, of course, as you know, conductor of the Kyle Larin train, we need Kyle Larin here if the train wants to run successfully. There's times where I say things where it's like there's no way that anybody understands what I'm saying. But very happy to see Larin here. Jonathan David, of course, no shock here. Even though he's not having the best times at Juve, if he's healthy, there's never a world where Jonathan David isn't getting called up for Canada. And then Tani Oluwaseyi, we've seen how much Jesse Marsch really likes him. He's been playing with Villarreal in and out the lineup, so no real shock there in that aspect. Some other shocks, though. Jason Russell-Rowe, was not expecting to see him in this window. I'm happy to see him though, because I'm a fan of Jason Russell-Rowe. I'm very happy that he's playing with Toulouse at the moment. He started again over the weekend as well. And as I keep saying, I think if he keeps playing with Toulouse, get some goals, get some form under him, I do think that we could see Jason Russell-Rowe potentially at the World Cup with Canada. And I think that that would be an unreal story for Jason Russell-Rowe, having essentially binned off by TFC, then Columbus Crew taking a punt on him. It working out obviously very well with Columbus Crew, so much so that he's now playing in Ligue 1. I think it'd be an incredible story. So I would love to see Jason Russell-Rowe pick up the form and get that World Cup spot. Would be awesome. So hope that he gets a chance to impress in these March windows, because once again, I think if he impresses in these March windows, you might be seeing a bigger claim for him to be at the World Cup, and I think that that would be absolutely massive. Another player I wasn't fully expecting to see, Daniel Jebison. Happy to see him here too, because I think he's had a pretty decent season with Preston. Hasn't set the world alight in some aspects, but I do think he has shown the type of player he can be, and I think the technical ability that he brings outside of Jonathan David, he's probably our most technically gifted striker that we have. Is that a hot take? I don't know. But I do think his technical ability is just so good that I would love to see him get a chance with the national team here in these March windows. He's back into the fold now. It's been a bit since he's been called up. So would like to see what he can do in these March windows. I think that this could be another huge window for another player. And finally, first camp for Peppel. I think he's warranted this call-up, but now it's time to rise to the occasion, I think, for him. And I don't mean this in any slight, any disrespect at all. But, of course, playing in the third tier of England, now you're going to have to make that jump up to show that you can also hang with some of these big boys. You're playing with a Jonathan David now. You're playing with an Ishmael Kone. And not saying he can't. That's not all I'm saying. I'm saying, though, now he's got to step it up, show that he not only belongs here, but that he's warranting potentially getting called to the World Cup now, because this window is huge for the guys here and the guys that have missed. Any guy here that I think is on the bubble, like your Pepples, like your Jason Russell-Rose, like your Daniel Jebusons, like your Kamal Millers, like your Jonathan Osorios, like your Marcelo Floreses, like your Marshall Ruddies, like your Ralph Prisos. This is a big window for guys that are here, because this is your last chance to impress in a Canada camp before the World Cup. And then the guys that are missing, I think it's huge that they're missing, because what does that say to you about your chance of going to the World Cup? Obviously, that's taking out like an Alphonso Davies, Stefan Estacio, because their spots, as long as they are healthy, I think are safe. But I'm talking about a guy like a Jaden Nelson, a guy like a Jacob Schaufberg, guys that are fighting it out for that third choice spot, like a James Pantemis, like a Theo Bear, which I'm pretty upset that he's missed this window, but like a Theo Bear, you're missing this window. What does that mean for your World Cup? How much do you have to now put in during these last couple months of the season to impress Jesse Marsch to warrant that World Cup call-up? And of course, these guys are probably talking with Jesse Marsch pretty frequently, I would assume, so they probably know what they have to do. They probably know what's needed to be done throughout the rest of the season for themselves to get those calls up. But yeah, that's kind of my feelings around this March window. And I think we are going to bring this one to an end here. Because I'm very content with how this one went. I do thank you so much for listening and following along and having a blast, I hope. And yeah, stick around. I'm going to be playing the preview for our podcast that's dropping on Friday. I cannot tell you how excited I am for you to hear this one. This is genuinely such a massive deal for me. So I really hope that you stick around in the next about 30 seconds, and I hope you enjoy the preview that I'm going to play. It drops this Friday, March 27th. I have to think about the day. March 27th. You are not going to want to miss this one. But thank you so much for listening. I do hope you appreciate. I hope that you liked it. I have appreciated it. And until next time, cheers, everyone. Hello, yes, and welcome back to the Maple Footy Podcast. And today I'm quite excited for the guest we have on. He's someone who will be offering quite the different insight into soccer for the podcast. He's a man with almost 17 years of media experience under his belt. You may know him from his coverage of the CFL or his coverage of Canadian soccer. He's someone who is synonymous with Canadian sports journalism and media, and someone who I personally look up to in this industry. His name is Matthew Shinetti. So Matthew, thank you so much for being here today.
Sam, I really appreciate that introduction, man. You made me feel old off the top, but you stuck the landing at the end. I really appreciate it, man. Glad to be here.
Thank you. I'm glad I could recover from that.
It's all good. It's all good.
And that was your Maple Footy Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Check my socials for any and all future updates. Remember to support Canadian football, be kind, and until next time, live, laugh, little.